rest of the book has these cool scientific ideas about how you could actually survive on Mars, like how many pieces you can cut potatoes into and how potatoes grow and how much water plants need.
Yeah, how much poop do you have to mix with sand to like make dirt? And like, yeah, that's great.
Hello, everybody. I'm Cody Troyer.
And I'm Brent Gaisford.
And we are the Hugonauts, here to review and discuss with you the best sci-fi novels of all time.
This week, The Martian by Andy Weir.
Which is 316 pages or 11-ish hours on audiobook, and came out in 2011. Didn't find any major awards that it won, but it did win the award of popular opinion, which is worth a lot of money and skyrocketed Andy Weir along his way. Slingshot.
Yeah, we went to when we went to the Hugos in 2022, that was the year that Project Hail Mary was eligible, and like no one was talking about it at the conference. It was bizarre. And then Andy Weir wasn't there. We were like going to try to interview Andy Weir, but like Andy Weir doesn't go to the Hugo Awards. Anyway, it turns out basically like Andy Weir just sells like 6 times as many books as anyone else inside. He was like, I don't care about this.
He shot straight over. Yeah. Okay,
Anyway.
Brent, what happens in The Martian?
Okay. 6 days ago, Mark Watney became one of the first people to walk on Mars. Today, he's sure he'll be one of the first to die. There's a terrible dust storm. His crew were forced to leave. They thought he was dead, so they left him behind. And now he's trapped on Mars and he has no way to even signal NASA and let them know that he's alive. But he probably won't starve to death. Some machine will break or he'll do something stupid along the way, and that'll be the end of Mark. But he is a relentless guy. He's going to keep trying. Will he be able to MacGyver his way off the red planet? That's the question.
Let's find out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wait, hold on. Can we ask 3 more questions though? First, will he be able to do? All right. Yeah. So
will he be able?
What is
first
next
of all?
week?
First, thank you. Yes, our next episode is on Dmitry Glukovsky's 2002 book, Metro 2033, which was voted on by the Discord as our next book club book. So we'll be talking about that on the show, and come join us on the Discord. March 27th, we're going to kick off the discussion there with everybody involved.
Yeah, it will be really fun. Always fun to chat about the book on the Discord before we do the episode. Why did you say the year it was published? Because there's a year in the title, it's so confusing. 2002's Metro 2033, people. Next week. Anyway.
I don't know.
What did you think of
I'm feeling hot.
What did you think of The Martian?
The Martian. It's unfortunately my time to boo myself, because I gave The Martian 3.5 out of 5. Boo. I think it's a really, there you go. Or you could boo me. I think it's a really fun novel. I love Mark Watney. The suspense is great. Everything is great, but there's really just, to me, nothing to take home from it or learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to give it a 5 stars. I'm so excited I get to be the fun one this week.
Hey!
I love The Martian. I think it's one of the best, like, you're right. There's no like philosophical thing here or whatever, other than like keep trying, I guess. But that's a good philosophy. That's good philosophy. Write that down. Anyway, but no.
Keep trying.
But that's
a 4th question.
But no, it's just like one of the best adventure stories ever. Like crazy page turner. The dialogue is like, thank God there's not that much dialogue. Even the internal monologue is like ridiculous, and no one thinks like that. But it's just like fun and page turning and gripping, and yeah, I just think it's a tremendous book. Robin Crusoe on Mars. It's awesome.
Yeah, and should we start with Robinson? I mean, let's just chat about Mark. Let's do that up front, because that's really he's the core of this book. He's a fun character. If
you've only seen the movie, Matt Damon, the only guy on the screen.
The only, yeah. And there are a few more characters in this novel. However, yeah, I mean, he's fun, he's funny, he's really optimistic, and he's inventive and likes describing his way through all the problems, which is perhaps to me the best part of the novel, is like all of the little science puzzles that he's figuring out and explaining his way through.
Oh, yeah.
How to grow food, how to get a habitat, how to do other stuff later in the book that I won't spoil.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's his like internal monologue is like a little cheesy, for sure. We can all acknowledge this, but it's also
Okay.
like super
I'm
fun and
glad you
interesting.
acknowledge.
I wrote down one quote that I really love. I think you're allowed to swear one time. I think we get one of these. Okay, quote, chemistry, being the sloppy bitch it is, ensures there will be some ammonia that doesn't react with the hydrazine. Anyway, he's telling you about benzene reacting with benzodrine, but he has like an opinion about chemistry being a sloppy bee, which I can't say twice, in the middle of it, which is great. It's just like, I don't know, the little fun mental problems are just like fun to solve with him. And he like greets them all with that same like, screw you, Mars. Like, I'm going to solve this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Mark is also incredibly optimistic. He's got endless optimism. How did you feel about that?
Um,
Because you're pretty optimistic too. Like, I feel like he kind of reminds me of you a little bit.
well, that's very sweet of you to say. I wish that I was like Mark Watney. I, obviously he's like relentlessly positive, maybe too much so, but honestly, like, I don't know. What are you going to do? You're going to not try on Mars?
I think he's way too optimistic. I thought it was unbelievable at points. I liked it for the story, but I think that's what part of what took me out of it a little bit, or at least leads me to say there's like not that much to take away from it. Like, you don't get to see really like how a human in that scenario would react.
Oh, right.
You
Because he
get
doesn't have any like mental health struggle. He just like wakes up with the rebar through his chest and is like, I've got this. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then there's a couple moments where he's like down, so it can serve the plot, but it's not really like, it's not lasting. He's just like, I'm sad now, and then I'm happy again. And so that bugged me a little bit, but it was also fun at the same time. So I think, to your point, it's just interesting how each of us rates books, and we've gotten to see a little bit more about like what each of us values. But obviously everyone values different things in fiction, and it's
Yeah, for sure. Well, this one also hit me like particularly hard because this was the book I took to the hospital when my son had to get surgery when he was like 6 weeks old. And then after the surgery, he wasn't allowed to eat for like 24 more hours. So he was just like inconsolable. He was in pain. And so it was, obviously like such a hard time. But so I just like held him. And he couldn't sleep if we weren't holding him. And then I like read all of The Martian in like 12 hours. And it like was so helpful to like take me to another place and like get me through it. So like, is my rating of this book colored by my personal experience? Yes, probably. But also like,
well, there you go.
Books like that are helpful.
But that's a real reason to really like something. So that's why it's, everyone has a different experience with each book, like where you are in your life, what you like particularly, what it does for you at that time, how much you can focus on it. It's an interesting look into like what we value and take with us and end up loving with what we connect it with in our life.
Yeah, that's totally right. Yeah, it depends on like the moment you're in.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of you, is your shirt inside out?
Yes, my shirt is inside out.
Okay.
It was a long day today, and I got up this morning and I was going to do some yard work, so I just like threw a shirt on, and I did. Okay, so I'm working on this. I'm working on that project with your dad on the like way to quantify whether programs reduce people's inclination to do violence.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Cody's dad has gotten obsessed with this phrase, which is I think I already used our swear, so I have to bleep myself, which is F next week. So your dad sent me a shirt that says F next week. And I wore that to do yard work, but then we went to take the kid to the park and there's like tons of children at the park. So I can't wear this shirt that just says F next week in big bold text. So yes, my shirt is inside out and it's your dad's fault.
I didn't get, Dad, if you're listening, I didn't get a shirt that says F next week. I want one too, bud. That's weak.
Limited edition, I guess. Yeah, no, it's it's a guy meditating, and then it says F next week. Yeah, so it's like solid. There's like ways for it to have a positive connotation, but also a lot of ways for it to have a negative connotation. It's just very interesting. Anyway,
I feel like that's also pretty Mark Watney.
Oh yeah.
Like
Mark Watney would definitely be into F next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
That's hilarious. All right. More about back to The Martian. The one thing that is interesting about The Martian to me, especially versus Andy Weir's other novels, because I've read Artemis and Project Hail Mary as well. The dialogue in this one and the other characters are actually pretty good, which is not, I don't think, one of his strong suits. But I like the other characters, the other space crew who accidentally left him on Mars, and then the ground crew and the commanders down in NASA. They're all really fun too. It all lends to this like air of levity of like, get the guy, let's get, we got to get him back.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know why that is, but yeah, I agree. There was like more. I liked Project Hail Mary also, but I didn't like love it the way I loved The Martian. And yeah, it did make me cringe more for sure.
Yeah, and for that reason.
Yeah, super cringy dialogue. Yeah.
Got you.
The Martian is like just like towing the line just enough. It was cheesy, but not like blue cheesy. Ooh, that was bad. That was cheesy too.
That was also, I was gonna say that, dangerously cheesy.
We can also this book is about plot, so it's hard to talk about pre-spoilers. But there's one more thing we can talk about. We should talk about the movie. Right. If you haven't seen this movie, you should watch it. It's great. If you have seen the movie, the book is still totally worth reading. I saw the movie first, still loved the book. There's not like new stuff in it, but it's just like there's just more, and it's just that same tone that was great. Like you just get more of it.
Well, and the book itself is kind of lends itself well to the screen. It's almost like a screenplay already, so it makes sense, that they. But Matt Damon nails it, and apparently there's a Project Hail Mary movie coming out too.
Yeah, I think they're shooting it. They're supposed to be shooting it starting this year in 2024, and it's starring Ryan Gosling as like the one guy. So the interesting thing about Project Hail Mary,
but let's just agree that Ryan Gosling is the best, the one guy there could be.
I mean, Matt Damon did a great job in The Martian. We'll see.
He did, but.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that Andy Weir wrote The Martian and like he blew up. He self-published The Martian and then became like wildly famous and sold, I don't know, probably millions of copies. They made a movie. Then he wrote Artemis and everybody was like, ooh, that was bad. You did a bad job. And then he's like, what am I good at? I guess I'm good at writing books about one guy being stuck alone, having to solve problems. How can I possibly make that happen again? And then he did it.
And he made it exciting still. And just to backtrack a little bit, he released it a chapter at a time on his blog because he hadn't had success with literary agents before. And then he released it on Amazon on Kindle for the minimum price, which is 99 cents. And like 30,000 people downloaded it, something like 35,000 people. And so then he signed a book deal for $100,000 with a publisher, which I hope he got points too. At least he got movie rights at least. But and then it became a New York Times bestseller. I think it was like 10th or 11th on the list. So it's a really cool story of someone just trying it out and putting something out there and wildly succeeding, which is fun no matter what, right?
Yeah, For sure. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, I think usually the way book deals work is so you get the upfront payment and then you don't get like any royalties. But you still have like, you're still earning royalties, but you don't get any checks until you've earned it back. So for most books don't earn back their advance because they don't sell that many copies. But if you write The Martian and you sell millions of copies, yeah, he made a lot of money. Don't worry. I think Andy Weir is like super duper stupid rich. Yeah.
Good for Andy and his floppy British driver's hats. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's really just not that much to say pre-spoilers, unfortunately, because the book is the plot. It's a fun plot. It's an enjoyable read, and don't mind my score. I still had a great time.
For sure. But yeah, I think we should do similar books and then we can talk about what happened post spoilers.
Yeah. Love it. The first one won't be a surprise because we've talked about it 9 times already. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir.
Yeah, you should read it. It's good. Okay. Next is I'll do We Are Legion, We Are Bob.
You wanted to skip. You wanted to.
Well, I thought about it because I think you like this book a little bit more than I do. I actually like it, but I'm embarrassed that I like it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so We Are Legion, We Are Bob is about one guy who has to save the universe, I guess is what we'll say. He gets his mind uploaded and then it all gets real crazy. Yeah, it's full of like super cringy Star Trek references that truly, as I was reading it, I was like, I'm embarrassed that I like this, but I do really like it. It's just a fun adventure story.
Yeah.
But it's just full of it's just so
the writing is bad. The story is fun. It's a fun read.
Yeah. Super fun read.
Yeah. And then finally Ready Player One, which is also just another really fun read. Full of also a bunch of references. It's basically the book is just nostalgia references, but it's fun.
Yeah, but the thing about that is Ernest Cline wrote a book all about how cool the 80s were, but he did it like he was like the first thing. And now, obviously, everyone agrees the 80s is the coolest decade because that's the decade 4 decades ago. But the guy who writes the books about 90s nostalgia, like you need to do it in like 3 years, maybe. And everybody will be like, whoa, this is crazy. But then everyone will be like, oh, wait, but I remember that was 4 decades ago now. It's sick.
Kurt Cobain, Counting Crows.
Done. There you go. Dude, do it.
You heard it here first.
You could do it. Counting Crows, though, really?
That's the first 2 things I thought of from the 90s.
I want the Cranberries. I want the
all
Cranberries.
music. Okay,
Ooh,
I mean, that's actually good. I mean, Counting Crows are kind of good, too.
They are good.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to post spoilers, shall we?
I think so. Yeah. So if you don't want to hear about the end of the book, it's a huge surprise what happens. Huge. I'm air quotes everywhere. It's so surprising. But anyway, but yeah, if you don't want to hear, turn back now. So what happens at the end, Cody?
Are you asking me now?
I'm asking you. Yeah.
Oh, he's saved.
Yep.
He's
he
just fine.
Yep.
He makes it. He makes it back. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the meantime. Did you want to talk our way through?
No, I think that was a pretty good summary.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, there's his habitat has an issue, and then he fixes that, and then he figures out the way to communicate with NASA through the old rover that's there.
That was an awesome idea. He like drove to the old broken down rover to like get its communications gear. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. And then like figures out how to communicate with NASA. That's a fun moment. He goes through the storm at the end because the first Mars escape vehicle, the MAV, whatever, Mars assault vehicle. Why is it MAV? Is broken or something's broken in it, so he has to go to the other site, but then there's a sandstorm, but NASA can't tell him about it because his communications go down, and then he launches into space, but they realize the old crew figures out that they're just going to try to send him food, but it doesn't work, so the old crew agrees and like colludes with some on the ground NASA people to
with Rick
slingshot.
Parcell, who's a
Yeah.
steely-eyed missile man. My favorite single line of the book and the movie.
Steely-eyed missile man.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way the crew tells NASA that like they found out about the way that they could save Mark and they're going to do it. They just send NASA, they like go off their course and they send NASA a message that just says Rick Purcell is a steely-eyed missile man. Because Rick Purcell is this guy who came up with this crazy ass plan for them to go save Mark, which they're going to do.
Rich Purnell.
Rich Purnell?
Rich Purnell.
No. I'm so
the Purnell
sorry.
maneuver. You didn't even get the maneuver right. You don't know who the steely-eyed missile man is. But they slingshot back, and then of course there's like one last moment where he's off course from them, so they do this maneuver to like eject one of their airlocks to get them enough velocity to get closer to his ship, and then the EVA specialist comes out of the ship and like grabs him and pulls him in. And it's really exciting and fun, and it gets less. The end is more fun and less realistic. The rest of the book has these cool scientific ideas about how you could actually survive on Mars, like how many pieces you can cut potatoes into and how potatoes grow, and how much water plants need.
How much poop do you have to mix with sand to like make dirt and like
right. And the communication stuff with the Earth is so cool and interesting to think through. And then the end is just like exciting, fun, but like 0.01% chance of success that totally is just fine.
Yeah.
And he's optimistic about it the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the other thing I would say that so the book actually for me was best in the beginning, like the first 50% and like the last 30%. The problem is in the middle, there's like that 20% chunk there where he can talk with NASA after he figures out how to talk with them. And it gets way less interesting because NASA just solves all the problems for him. I had way less fun with that. And then he screws up and destroys his own radio. And then it like got really sweet again because Mark just has to like be on a one-man mission to save himself. And
but I thought
that's where Andy Weir thrives.
It worked well. It worked well for the pacing at least. Like it broke it up a little bit. If it just had been like straight,
they couldn't. It had to be the way that it was. But while I want him MacGyver. I want MacGyver. That's what we're here for.
Right. Sorry. Yes. And you want to like see yourself in that, which is, I think, again, to Weir's credit, what's fun about the science is that he makes it accessible. So like, even though there's not a chance in hell I would ever be able to come up with these ideas because I have none of that experience or background or knowledge.
Because you're not a botanist, Cody, the world's best kind of scientist.
I'm not any kind of scientist. You bring up one kind. I'm also not a mechanical engineer, nor am I a chemist. I mean, I couldn't have thought of any of it, but it was fun to be like, yeah, totally, Mark. That makes sense. That's how you make water out of hydromethazine or whatever the hell. I will say there's... Do you want to say something? Because I just talked a lot.
I mean, I think we did it. This is the Martian.
I have one more thing to say.
Oh, good. Well, tell us then.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll talk some more. Thank you. Thank you for the floor. I'll accept. The only real takeaway, I said earlier that there's like not that much I thought about after the book, but the only real takeaway that I did have from the book, it might have been probably an unintended consequence, but I did find it interesting to think about how humans, we love narrative and we're such narrative story emotional creatures, that we love this idea of saving one guy who's on a different planet, who's elected to go on this dangerous mission, who he's signed away his life already. He said it's okay, and everyone wants to use all the money and all the people's minds and all the resources and to save him and be excited about it. Yet we cannot muster up an ounce of emotion for large groups of people in real trouble.
Yeah, there's genocide in the Darfur again. Nobody even knows. Nobody even talks about it. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, that's right. It's not, I mean, real world or story. Like if you wrote a story about people, a large group of people wouldn't be interested in it.
Well, you have to make it about, you have to make it about the one person, right? Like,
You have to make it, they have to be a microcosm of the group. You have to really love the one character. Even when you get up to 2 characters, 3 characters that are kind of like at an even level in the group, and you don't have as close of an emotional connection with any of them, it could, like, the more degrees you're separated from like a single character, the less we care about stories. Or at least that's one of my takeaways.
yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you definitely just can't talk about large groups of people, you know? We're not like, our brains just don't work at large numbers, you know? Like what's the best movie about the Holocaust? Schindler's List. It's about like one guy who saves like 40 people. On the scale of the Holocaust, that's like a rounding error. But when you see the story, you're like, it's extremely,
it's
emotionally moving.
Emotional.
Those are, you know, it makes you appreciate like the 40 people, and then your brain can do like 2 more orders of magnitude where you're like, oh wow, that's crazy how many people got hurt, and then you're still like 2 orders of magnitude short of what really happened. Anyway, yeah, no, I think you're totally right.
Yeah, and so I mean, even in the real world, I feel like we would expend this level of effort to save one person from an extreme scenario, because it's in a scenario each one of us can see ourselves in, instead of a group scenario that makes it a little less easier to identify with emotionally, empathize with. That's the word. Empathize. That's the word of the day for those of you who didn't know the word empathize.
Yeah, I had no words of the day from Andy Weir's The Martian that were done.
Okay.
Don't worry, you didn't miss it.
That makes sense.
Oh, you know what? This is a total aside, but this is we're done talking about The Martian, so I have a quick point. I just noticed, or just sort of realized, when I listen to books on audiobook, I like notice the vocabulary much less. Do you feel the same way? Like, I feel like when I'm reading a book physically, I like see a new word and I like look it up, and like listening to the audiobook, you kind of just like, you know, you pick up little context clues and you're just like, meh.
I was just thinking about this because I feel like listening to audiobooks has improved my vocabulary a lot. And I think it's because I look up words that I don't know when I'm listening. I think when I do hit a word that I don't know, I look it up because I'm interested. I want to know what it is, how it's spelled, why they used it. And in a fun example where I got it totally wrong when I made my own assumptions was in Hyperion, Dan Simmons calls the movement of humanity through the universe the Hejira. And I figured that I had not made the connection yet that was associated with, you know, the Islamic Hijra and Hijra, and not just a different way of saying hegemony, like a dissociation of the word hegemony. I thought Hijra meant hegemony spreading, but it does not.
Interesting.
It's got a historical Arabic root.
Well, good on you for looking it up. Yeah. Anyway, there's nothing you need to look up in Andy Weir's The Martian. You know all the words, and that's part of why it's great. Should we leave it there?
Good work slingshotting that back around the planet
missile
using
man
the gravity
maneuver,
to get back. Martian is fun. It's great. We hope you liked it too, and we'll see you next time for Metro 2033.
Till then, keep reading, y'all.
Published in 2002. Bye.